Number 4, in a fire emergency panic, how many rated stairwells are there required to be found in the floor plan to get people to safety? So you probably know this already. What do you think the answer is? Give you a second. The answer is going to be 2. Right? We need 2 ways of egress. If this was a bigger building, we might need more. If this was a smaller building, like a tiny building, we might be able to get away with just 1. But let's just confirm our thoughts about it. So in this case, I'm going to go back to the building code. Now remember, I've sort of skipped ahead on a lot of these. I would, if we were coming at these totally blind, I would be looking at the program in certain situations. I'd be looking at the climate in other ones to gather enough information to then be able to go to the building code. In the interest of time, I'm just kind of going straight to the complicated one. So that's why I'm using the building code so much on this. So, all right, let's go to the building code. And the question was the minimum number of exits. So where is that going to be? That's going to be in the means of egress section, because exiting obviously is part of the means of egress. And there we go right there. Under the means of egress, we find minimum number of exits or access to exits per story. For occupant load of 1 to 500, remember we've already done an occupant load. We had 400 people, but even more importantly, we're talking about from an individual story of the building. So this is going to be maybe 100 people per floor. So we're definitely below the 500 number, and that's going to require us to have those 2 exits. If we were much, much bigger, we might have to have 3, possibly even 4 exits. That's not the only reason that we would choose the number of exits. It could also be we have the same size building, but it's oriented in a much different way. It's much longer and thinner. And so therefore, our egress distance might not meet it. We might have to add a 3rd stairwell just because the length of somebody going from one of the offices all the way to an egress stair might have been stretched out so far that it goes beyond that actual allowance, which in this case would be 200 feet if it was a non-sprinklered building and 300 feet if it was a sprinklered building. So there's multiple ways we might attack this issue of how many stairwells there are, but the question didn't ask any of that about any of that sort of extra complication. It just said, it didn't give us any of that. Plus, as we look at the site plan or the site photo, this is a fairly compact site. There's really no way that we could have a building that was 400 feet long. So we couldn't really get into that kind of situation. So it doesn't really apply any. So you're losing the kind of information, kind of making a judgment call from the various sources of pieces of information you have. If you were tight on time, this is definitely one of those ones that I would have said, yeah, sounds like 2 to me, and I would have guessed on it without even bothering going through it all. But there you go. We just went through and found it, and we feel pretty comfortable with it.
I think there's probably something here to sort of say out loud. So as you're scrolling through all those pages, if I had never done a code review in my life, I would be like, how in the world does Mike know where to go?
No, absolutely.
I think the thing to say here is, if you're thinking about taking this exam, a great way to prepare for this exam is to do a couple of code reviews. And so maybe you have a project, and maybe you're working on a project and you're just doing some modeling and drawing. Maybe you can go back and say, hey, project architect or project manager, I want to do a code review on this. And then go do 3 or 4 code reviews in your office. Take projects that already have a code review that's done. Because the thing is, and I'm sure this is what Mike's going to say, is that you go to the same places.
Yeah.
You're collecting the same information time after time after time. They could probably distill the IBC down to like probably a 3-page document,
Right,
and that's
yeah.
actually all the information.
It's probably a little bit longer than that, but maybe 10 pages,
Yeah,
something like that.
That's the stuff you use every single time.
And then there's an appendix with the other 500 pages for those special occasions when you need to go to something else. Yeah, no, absolutely. In kind of the old days, before everything was online, you'd have a big, thick code book. And it would be, the book might be 6 inches thick or 5 inches thick, something like that. And it would be, we'd have all kinds of Post-it note little places so we could find the pages that we always go to. You would always be going to the height and area limitations. You'd always be going to the classification of use type and what the sort of issues are around each of those. You would always be going to, the plumbing code is actually a great example. You don't necessarily do that every time, but man, it shows up a lot. You really got to take a look at that and make sure you got enough of bathrooms and all of that. So there's probably 10 or 12 different things that you look at over and over again, and then there's a bunch of other stuff that you look at occasionally. And so once you start going through it, Marc's absolutely right. Once you start going through it, you realize, oh wait, this isn't as complicated as it seems. And I highly recommend. I like the idea of actually doing a code review of a project that already has a code review, so you can do it yourself and then check against the one that the other folks in your office did, and sort of have that moment where you can see, like, did I find the same pieces of information?
And then do another code review on a different project, and you're going to figure out, like, oh yeah, gee, I just went to all these exact same and then do another code review, do 3 or 4 of them, and it'll be really clear, like, oh yeah, I keep going to the same spots. And NCARB is probably not. Remember, they're not trying to.
Not trying to trick
evaluate,
you. Yeah.
Whether you understand all the crazy screwball scenarios, but instead they want to, they want to evaluate, you kind of can do a standard, reasonable, collect the proper information and make the proper decisions for sort of a common scenario. They're not going to look for some crazy screwball thing to throw at you, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, they might, of course, you never know, but they certainly don't think that. When we've talked with them, they certainly think that they're going to try to have this be as sort of rational and normal as possible.
That's right.
And sort of a classic example, one that we're not going to look at today, but a classic example of that would be something like the egress width for a stairwell. And, essentially, if I have a stairwell in a private residence, it's going to be a 36-inch width. But if I have a stairwell in a public setting, well, it's almost always going to be a 44-inch width, unless I have a occupancy load that goes above a certain moment. And so often you'll be like, if you're kind of close to that occupancy load, you'll be like, wait, what was the number again? You go back, you look at how are they calculating that load, you do a quick calculation, and maybe your number comes in at, well, we can do it in 38 inches. Well, that's great, but then you realize, oh, but there's an exception somewhere that says the minimum number. So yeah, you went through the calculation, but the minimum number is going to be 44 inches. And so you find that kind of thing over and over again. So these are numbers, these are tables, these are concepts that will likely show up over and over again.
So there's a good question from Johnny here. He's saying, is there a book or website if people don't work in a place where they do code reviews? I don't know if there's a book or a website. I guess we should make one. But,
there's a pretty good Cheng book on how to use building codes. I would recommend it, as like I love all Cheng books, like every architect does. Yeah. And that one's a pretty good one. But the other thing is, the IBC is right there online. You could just look at a building, maybe the building you're in, and say, all right, how would I, does this building meet the code? And just start looking stuff up. And even that would give you a pretty fast version of how to find something.
Yeah, I guess a thought I'm having is like, Johnny, I'm sure you have a friend who works in another architect's office. Yeah. That would be a good opportunity to kind of like buddy up and maybe go have a little study session at their office. I certainly know what you mean. Some firms don't do that kind of work necessarily, but
or if you're working for a contractor or something, it just may not be something that's in your normal purview.
That or your local a.r.e. chapter. I'm sure you can network your way into a code. I never said that before. You can network your way into a code review. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah,
but
that sounds awful, true. But okay. And you should absolutely be using this as a, people want to help you get through this process. Everybody is on your side on this, and so if you ask somebody, You say, look, I don't have an opportunity to do code reviews, but I need to be able to do this for being able to pass this exam. You know, they'll spend a lunch with you and go through and help you bring the bring the books or bring their code reviews from other projects or something, and give you a chance to sort of look through them. People really want to help you through these exams, so use that momentum to help you out.